Hello everybody, welcome back to a video where I talk over a game. Today I wanted to talk about how people with neurodivergency, and potentially mostly those who are on the autism spectrum, may not be the best person to go watch a movie with, because we will see inconsistencies and we will make sure to note them as well. We will be the people in a movie theater going, "That's not even possible," stuff like that, and repeatedly, not just once or twice. Anyway, the other day I found a portable DVD player at a secondhand store, and I hadn't had a DVD player in a long time. I used to have a whole collection of DVDs. I watched a lot of movies back in the day, and I had a whole wall full of DVDs to show for it, but then after a while I didn't have a working DVD player anymore. Also, DVDs were kind of going out of style because everything was going online, so I got rid of my DVD collection back then, shortly before I moved to a new place because I wanted to move less stuff. So for many years I didn't have a DVD player, but then the other day I picked one up, and I was like, what movie would I like to watch? And I was at a secondhand store, so I had plenty to choose from, and I found a copy of The Langoliers, which is one of my favorite movies from back in the day. If you've not seen it, I'll give a quick rundown. So there is a bunch of people on a plane from LA to Boston, like a full plane basically, and then while the plane is on its way, it flies over the Mojave Desert, and there is a strange aurora borealis going on apparently, which is unusual for that location. I wouldn't know because I've never been there, but apparently it was unusual. And certain people on the plane are asleep while they go over this point. Now we don't actually see the plane going through there because it's kind of just assumed. They talk about it afterwards. It's mentioned beforehand that they're going to be flying over it. But when the people that fell asleep woke up, they find themselves in a virtually empty plane, save for the people that were asleep during that time. And all that remains of the other people that were on board the plane is an enormous amount of change, a lot of watches, some dentures, things that were supposed to be inside the body, but the body has disappeared, so now they're on their chair, things like that. Now, one of the people that fell asleep just so happened to be a pilot of that same airline, called American Pride, because I guess they didn't want to call it American Airlines because that would cost American Airlines money with people now refusing to fly on their flights. I don't know. So he goes into the cockpit and checks out what's going on. The pilots are also gone. They decide to land at Bangor as an emergency landing procedure. Once there, they find out that actually they are the only ones there. Nobody is there at all. There's been no contact over the radio either. It's like the entire world has been emptied of people except for them. Now eventually they figure out through this guy who was also on the plane, who turns out to be a villain, that there are these creatures called the langoliers who eat the past, basically, because time in this sense is more of like a moving thing. Like you have the present, everybody is normally in the present. There's the future that's being made, and then there's the past that's being eaten by these langoliers because they're basically like time garbage men. So they go ahead and figure out a plan to get back on the plane, and get some fuel in the plane, and then fly back through that aurora borealis over the Mojave Desert to try and catch up with time. Now one person has to stay behind on the plane to lower the oxygen levels so everybody else can go back to sleep because they figure they need to be asleep, otherwise they'll disappear. The person who does that is apparently some type of British assassin who had planned to go over to Boston to murder a woman who was connected to a politician who was connected to the IRA. Fun how that happens. So he stays awake and ends up disappearing. And once they are through the aurora borealis again, everybody else wakes up. They land at LAX. And then they stand against the wall to wait for time to catch up to them, because apparently now they've been in the future for a little bit, meaning that all the people in the present haven't caught up to them yet, but once they do, they're enormously excited to see everybody again, and then they just do this running jump thing with a freeze frame at the end because everybody's so super happy, and all's well that ends well. But I figured that the story should really just begin at that point, because there's three things that could have happened. Like, they assume, thing number one, that the people that were not asleep all disappeared. The plane that they are on is the only plane in existence, so that is also the only plane, at least the only exact copy of that plane. There are many other planes, of course. Once they go back to the present, and all the people that disappear died. That's number one, that's their assumption. Another theory is that the moment they went through that aurora borealis, there was a copy made, and the original plane continued to fly to Boston, just landed there and went along its business. Everybody was on the plane, did their thing, and the people that went through the rift and woke up there are actually on a copy of the plane, and they themselves are a copy of people who are now walking around in Boston. So by the time they land back in LA, there's now a duplicate plane with a bunch of duplicate people as well as there being one person on board who is deceased, but I'll get to that because I kind of forgot to tell you that in the synopsis. Another option is that the plane flew through the Aurora Borealis. The plane did get copied, but instead of flying with a full crew and staff or people on board, the people that were asleep disappeared from the original plane and are now on this duplicate plane in the past. So when they fly the plane back to the present, there's now a duplicate airplane with 7 of the missing people, 1 corpse, and 2 other people still missing, reportedly deceased by the people that returned. The corpse, by the way, is this 12-year-old girl. I think she was 12, not really sure. Her age isn't really mentioned, I don't think. Either way, she ended up dying through the whole villain arc thing of the other guy. So no matter what happens, they land at LAX and there is the body of a 12-year-old laying on a stretcher in the plane and 7 people who are super happy but have very little in the ways of a rational explanation as to how any of this happened. Because if it were the copy situation, if they were actually a copy of the plane that kept on going, then the person, the British assassin who disappeared in our storyline, did fly to Boston, is now going to go after that woman because he doesn't know what happened to the other person that was on the plane. And the people that are in LA at this time think that this murder attempt has been prevented because that person died. They're not going to be able to do it anymore. But eventually they will figure out that they are copies because the authorities, of course, want to know what the heck's going on. They'll have to identify themselves, and then they'll look up the people that are registered under that name. Hey, didn't they just fly to Boston? Let's see if they arrived. Yes, they did. How come we have somebody here with a passport and we have somebody there with a passport, and they all say that they are the same person? Once they figure that out, they'll now know that that guy was also on the plane and is now going to assassinate somebody. Maybe has already done so. And they may be just in time or just too late. So then you have the whole identity question, like, okay, whether the murder or not took place. Matter of fact is we have 7 people here who claim to be the same people as 7 people on the other side of the country. So now, whose job is this? Whose kids are these? Whose husband and or wife is this? Whose house is this? Is this my bank account? Can I use it? Etc. Is this identity theft? Do they have to register and get a new passport or new identity? Or what's going on? We have no idea. We have no precedent of that. Precedent, not president. On top of the fact that their story is usually fantastical and nobody would probably believe it. But in this scenario where there are copies, it would at least be somewhat believable. Because in the other 2 scenarios where they just keep flying and either they disappear or everybody else disappears, there is just 1 copy of each person, and either way they have to explain where all the dead people are. Or why they're not dead, because in the other situation they disappeared from the plane, but apparently they had a copy that they pulled out of their pocket and they flew that to LA? Like, what's going on? They have to explain that as well. Aside from the fact they have to explain why there is a dead 12-year-old in the plane. So I think that would make a very interesting sci-fi series that really would need a couple of seasons to unpack all of the different ins and outs. Like, how would the public receive this? How would their families receive this? How long would it take them for anybody to believe them? Would they have anything to show in the ways of evidence? Because I don't think they do. Other than each other's accounts, which would be the same because they all experience the same thing. But I think it would be Twin Peaks level interesting, I think, if they made like a whole series out of that. But since there is no series, I'll be sitting there watching movies like that and going, they would never say something like that. I'm like, oh my god, that's not possible. That's a terrible idea. Stuff like that. Like, and now what? Now what happens? Make it make sense. Are you like that when you're watching movies? Or you know somebody who's like that when you're watching movies? And did you ever consider that maybe they're not being annoying? They just don't understand what's going on? I mean, suspend your disbelief, sure, up to a certain point. But after a while, it just becomes too incredible, and then you have to say something. But I also kind of enjoy ragging on movies for being ridiculous, because I think that's also part of the fun. For me, anyway. But let me know in the comment section what you think about this topic, and what movie have you seen most recently that made you go, wait a second, there's no way that would ever happen. Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.